you, Jane. That's true. Jenny used to run an open mic at a bar in Jamaica Plain called The Alchemist. And it was a lot of fun. Like, I loved going there and fighting for attention from the patrons that I didn't deserve. It was a lot of fun. Boom. I saw a movie recently that I really loved. It was called 127 Hours. Have you guys heard of this movie? It's based on a true story. A few years ago, there was a guy named Aaron Ralston. He was hiking alone in Utah, and he actually had an appendage trapped under a boulder, and he had to self-amputate to escape alive. It was pretty amazing. That guy, you know, he lived to tell the story. He wrote a book about that experience, and he sort of glibly titled it Between a Rock and a Hard Place. It's a little on the nose, I think, for a movie about cutting off one of your limbs. Although it's better than his original title, which was A Farewell to Arm. I feel like that guy who did that, Aaron Ralston, he would be the most irritating guy to talk to at an amputee convention, which I'm told they have. I don't know. Like, picture yourself at the amputee convention. You go every year since you lost your leg to diabetes. You start talking to Aaron Ralston. You're like, hey man, how'd you lose your arm? That's what I assume you talk about at those conventions. You're not going to ask about his 10-key typing, piano playing. It's how'd you lose the arm, and I bet you save a lot of money on gloves. So anyway, you're like, hey, man, how'd you lose the arm? And this is what he's going to say to you. He's like, well, I was hiking alone. I had to self-amputate to escape with my life. I wrote a best-selling book about it. They made a movie about it. It was critically acclaimed. It was an amazing story of perseverance and the will to survive. And then, you know, he's a polite guy, I assume. He's going to be like, well, how did you lose your leg, sir? And you have to look at him dead in the eye. And you have to be like, I really like cookies, ice cream. You could say that my leg was pinned under the rocky road in a sense. I think you could say that. It's about a movie. I love movies. They teach me a lot of things. They teach me a lot of, like, for instance, I know for a fact, and not just because I used to work in the auto industry, that robots are evil, guys. Robots are evil things. You only have to look at one piece of evidence to know this for a fact. The film RoboCop is about a half robot, half police officer who makes 0 arrests and kills dozens and dozens of people with the giant fictional gun that comes out of his thigh. And with the computer spike that comes out of his hand. That really never caught on as a storage medium, the spike you just jam into a computer. Facebook. No friend request. I was walking around Boston Common recently, and they have a duck pond there, which is nice. But you're not supposed to feed the ducks. And rather than just having a sign that says, don't feed the ducks, they have signs. But there's like 5 reasons on there why you should. They try to bombard you with reasons not to feed the ducks. Like, oh, it's bad for the environment. It causes dependence. It causes human-duck altercations. Which sounds less like a reason not to feed ducks and more like the driest description of a cartoon that I've ever heard in my life. But you know, as a young Bostonian walking through the city every day, they don't list what would be the most effective deterrent in getting me not to feed the ducks, which would be to say that ducks are also technically homeless. So if you see one, don't give it anything. Just turn up your iPod and pretend you don't see it. We do it every damn day. Every damn diggity damn day. How to this little thing. Two more things. So, I was talking about movies. I love movies. I used to live in California. I lived there for 15 years. It was really good. Oh, no, it wasn't. But one of the movies I came to love. Have you guys ever seen the classic Clint Eastwood Western, For a Few Dollars More? Anyone ever seen that? Yeah. Two people, yeah. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll give you a quick rundown on why it's so good. Clint Eastwood plays a bounty hunter, all right? And he's looking for his bounty. He tracks his bounty to a small town, to a bar in that small town. He beats his bounty in a game of poker, beats up his bounty one-handed, shoots his bounty's gang, kills the bounty, turns in the bounty for the money, calls the sheriff a coward, takes his badge, and he rides off into the sunset. Right? It sounds like a pretty awesome movie. That's the first 4 minutes of It's almost 2 hours long. So that should give you a handle on how great it is. Guys, I'm going to do this and I'll skedaddle because you guys seem to like me and I don't want to ruin that. Which I will do. A couple of shots at my mom and all of a sudden everybody hates me. All right. I met my grandfather recently for the very first time. I'd never met my grandfather before because my father had at one point in my life, he had sat me down and he had told me, why I never knew him. And it was because he told me basically about the vicious physical abuse that his father, my grandfather, had put him and his siblings through. And that was kind of earth-shattering news for me. And my father told me that at the most appropriate time in a young man's life, which was about 10 years ago when we were in a movie theater waiting for Shanghai Noon to start. I know what you guys must be thinking, oh my god, Shanghai Noon came out 10 years ago? Yeah, it's been 10 years since Shanghai Noon, guys. I'm sure there's going to be a collector's edition DVD on the shelf soon, so keep an eye out. If you're going to tell your son about the vicious physical abuse you endured as a child, try not to tell him at a movie where the violence is so wacky and appealing. Think about that. Think about that. I'm trying to, I don't want to be he's kicking tables and throwing ladders. I don't know how to enjoy the movie after that. I don't know who I'm cheering for. So I finally met my grandfather. And I guess I'm not as convicted as a person as I thought I am, because I always thought I would hate him, like forever, for what he did to my father. But he gave me $50 in a Houston Texans sweatshirt, and I was like, I guess this is fine. I thought this team was called the Oilers. I love you, Granddad. Weird experience. Finally, I'll really end this. I didn't express a lot of emotion at that time because I have a more true emotional connection to fantasy than reality, which is really messed up. I'll give you guys an example. Like I've ever been times in my life where I felt a very crushing sadness, like I think everybody has at some point, and I think, man, if I could just cry, I would feel better, it would be cathartic, but I can't do it. I just can't. And I think it's a sign that you're messed up when you find it impossible to cry when you're sad, but you find it impossible not to cry when you're watching Toy Story 3. More real than funny. Let's bring up Jenny Zigrino, everybody. Thank you so much, Jenny.